Welcome back, Soulfull Society, to Soulfull of Wellness,
the multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
and certified coaches
who deliver tips to live your most authentic, balanced, and anxiety-free life.
In this week's episode, we're talking about a topic that's deeply personal and impactful in both of our lives, actually.
We'll start off this week's episode by telling you about something that we've never discussed on the pod before. Not because it's a secret, it just hasn't really come up. And in full disclosure, it's going to be a little challenging for us to discuss this topic so publicly. But we know how important it is to be real, to be raw, and to be honest with y'all. So today, we're taking this soulful relationship we all are participating in here to the next level by sharing some deeply personal stuff with you. Welcome to the Inner Circle. Thanks for being with us for another week of wellness goodness. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. We're happy to have you as part of the Soulfull Society.
We would love to have you as a regular listener. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to subscribe so that you'll get a new episode of Wellness Goodness delivered automatically to your phone every Thursday morning.
If you have not yet rated and reviewed Soulfull of Wellness, we'd love to have you help us out by tapping that 5th star and jotting down a few words about the podcast.
Today's topic.
Yes, I'm ready.
It's interesting, right? Because I'm a firm believer in divine timing. And things come up, things happen, discussions occur at the right time when they're meant to. And so in light of that, I mean, I feel like today's topic is finally the right time. And like you said before, it's not that we were hiding it from you guys. It just really never came up, but it seems to be coming up more than ever in big moments and little moments in both of our lives.
The reason this is such a topic of particular relevance to our lives and is, quite frankly, particularly present in our lives is both of our moms are suffering from brains that are not operating in a healthy fashion at this time. So that's like a really cryptic way of saying it. But my mom has quite advanced Alzheimer's, and it is so painful to have anyone in your life with a mental disorder, with something not working as it should in their brains. It's a special kind of painful when it's my mom. I mean, mom's the person who always took care of everything. Mom's the person who always had the answers, who knew how to do things, who was the trusted source and the reliable party. And through absolutely no fault of her own, obviously no one asks for anything like this or chooses anything like this, she can no longer be that person for me or for herself or for anyone.
And please bear with us today, guys. It's it's a different tone, this episode, because it does affect us so deeply. And you're right. It's our moms. I think it took so long to get here, to be able. It took me so many years. So my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2014, and it has advanced rapidly in the last 2 years or so. And she's starting to exhibit, signs and symptoms of a dementia-like brain. And it took me so long, my friends can attest to this, to even speak about it with them. And even within my own family, it's finally, we're all coming together and we're speaking about it and living in our own reality. So I think to finally talk about it on the pod, it just feels like we've really reached an understanding and ability to be able to share this, because it is so important to share our stories, because we know, you may be going through a similar thing with someone in your life. Maybe it is also your mother who's experiencing this. And so it's important to share, but I think it's also important to be compassionate with ourselves and gentle as we, go through these journeys of processing something that's so devastating, quite frankly, and heartbreaking like this.
And there are stages to processing.
Yeah.
And it's, in my limited experience, similar to stages of grief. But it's an odd dichotomous kind of grief, because I am grieving the loss of my mom
while she's still alive.
She's still here.
Yeah.
Right. And then, all the weird societal things we put on ourselves, where I'll say like, oh, but I'm actually really lucky. Some people don't get as many years as I got with my mom. I mean, hell, my mom's 93 and I got a lot of good years with my mom, but that's irrelevant. It doesn't diminish the pain.
Mm-mm.
But sometimes I think I try to escape from the pain by kind of consoling myself with these irrelevancies, saying, but look, you got this, or look, your mom's technically still alive, but it's not my mom. Like, I miss my mom, my mom who was my mom, and her Alzheimer's has progressed to the point now where I no longer see glimmers of my mom, but for a time, every now and then, this glimmer of my mom, my witty, intelligent, funny. She had this really wry, dry, not sarcastic, but this sense of humor that was very clever. That always, I would take this moment of lag when she would make these impromptu, in the moment, funny little witticisms or jokes. And I always felt a beat behind. Like, I always knew I wasn't smart in the way that she's smart, that she was, and then to catch up. And for a while, every now and then there would be this glimmer, and I was like, there she is. There's my mom. But I don't get those anymore.
It is a special kind of fucked up to grieve someone while they're still alive. It is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Nobody chooses this. It's a special kind of pain that is so complex that I think you're right. It probably is why, maybe one reason why it takes so long to process witnessing someone you love so dearly and deeply, and someone who's taken care of you and brought you into this world.
Yeah, hell, let's
oh my God, like gave us life to watch them
wither. And
I know, I didn't even want to say it. It's like I feel like I can feel myself wanting to put a Band-Aid over it, wanting to sort of like tiptoe over, how dark this can really, how dark this is. Again, I was trying to edit myself and be like, how dark this can be, and watch this set. Like, it's just a deep pain.
I think that was part of the stages that I've gone through over time, just what you're describing, where I would, point blank, I have found new depths in myself that I did not know existed. I would have said 10 years ago, oh, I can't do that. I'm not that strong. I don't have that in me. Well, when you have no choice, you find it within you. You find new depths of strength. And then the mind is an interesting thing. 3 pounds of really interesting thing. And I let things in doses, and I would take it as far as I could take it in the moment, which often wasn't that far, And then I would need what you're describing, the levity or the lightness. And I'd say tapping out, no can do, like just going to completely distract myself mindlessly in a different direction. And I will revisit this. I will come back to it, and I'll see if next time I can take it one layer deeper of my acceptance and my understanding to the degree that I can understand something of this magnitude, and my strength and fortitude and ability to be the daughter my mom deserves, even when she can't be the mom she wants to be or always wanted to be.
Or was.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the most painful realizations actually was frankly just reality. And it was in the moment where my therapist looked me in the eye and just laid out the hard truths. And it's crazy because my mind had been playing this game for years. You guys, years. I'm talking 7. And to be hit with the truth like that stings. But then there's this wave of, I don't want to call it relief. I feel like it's just this wave of realness, because there aren't a lot of people in your life who are going to hit you with a hard truth that you didn't necessarily ask for. Now, one would argue I was asking for it, because I told her that's why I've come to therapy. Because as we know, feelings that we don't let out, that we don't greet, that we don't welcome in, that we don't address, just get stuffed down into the body and physically manifest as illness, as disease, as anxiety, as depression, as all these different symptoms. So to be able to face reality, I think, was the biggest pivotal point. But to know that the journey just is never going to end, the grief journey is just never going to end, is certainly daunting. But to your point, it's interesting how the mind just does everything it can to protect us, whether it's denial, whether it's trying to make light of something that has no light to it. It's always going to try to protect us or lead us, when in reality, we really are our soul, our spirit. And this podcast is about living from the soul and living a balanced life. And so if we think about our mothers, if you think about the person in your life who's suffering from a brain disorder where their brain is just not fully working anymore, we can find peace in knowing they aren't their brain. You aren't your brain. You aren't your mind. You're actually your soul, and you're a spirit.
Yes. I'm processing so much of what you said.
It's a lot.
That was really deep, Kaylin, and I was with you through all of it. You're so right. Because I'm thinking, gosh, so many things about what you said. Just, I think kind of what you're describing is a reluctant acceptance. You can hate it, but accept it. And it's almost like you have to accept it for your own good. Because if you just hate it and all your energy is centered on resentment and anger, that's what's inside of you. That's what it becomes, and it grows. But if little bit by little bit, and with the help of others, we can accept this unpleasant reality, and then we can be present in the capacity that could actually be helpful, to our moms, but also largely to our dads, who get, the big brunt of never asked for this.
It's a relief to also know, to have your coach, your therapist, your support system look at you and be like, it's okay to be pissed off. I heard you say angry, and that's a part of it. And to not sit in the anger and resentment, to feel it when it inevitably comes up, is also a game changer. I had to learn how to be angry, as weird as that sounds, especially females. in this world are not encouraged to be angry, and that's a whole nother, topic. But to be angry and to feel the anger for that moment in time, because feelings are fleeting and feelings are always telling us something, right? They're communicators, is what you need. And I think it's like this crazy balancing act. It's a dance of dancing to the rhythms of your feelings. Because when we just ignore that dance and we're sitting, I'm tapping out, I'm on the bench, that's when we start to get sick. That's when we start to react horribly. That's when things start to really crumble and fall apart. But when we can dance in the madness, when we can be angry, when we can be sad, when we can be heartbroken and devastated, those emotions pass, and then we can welcome in the joy when there's many pockets of joy.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of fear around these illnesses. I know my mom feels fear all the time. That's the one thing. She's not good at expressive language anymore, but that's the one thing that she gets across constantly, is that she's afraid all the time. I'm afraid. I'm afraid for her. I'm afraid for myself. I just being completely candid. I know that sounds selfish, and somebody could say like, "Oh, way to make it all about you." But I'm not even fearful. I'm terrified of this illness happening to me. I've seen the insidious nature of what it does and how it does it, and because I saw all the stages along the way, anytime I recognize anything in myself that falls into line with those early signs that we didn't realize were signs, it's terrifying.
Of course it is. But of course. So if you can honor that fear and say, yeah, I'm freaking scared.
Yeah.
And walk up to that fear. Like, of course you're scared. I think that's only natural. And it's interesting, what you said about fear being at the root of all of this. My mom's first symptoms, there was one physical symptom of the shaking. And we've learned so much more about Parkinson's than I ever wanted to know. No, just frankly.
Yeah. So many things we genuinely want to learn about in life that we have curiosity around, yet we have a whole lot of knowledge about these things that we wish we didn't.
We wish we didn't have a personal connection to this. You think, JC and I have been thinking about, what organization do we want to be involved with? Like, the homeless, or like animals, or like all these things. We're like, oh, how do we narrow it down? And then I'm having a light bulb moment in this moment that I've felt that spark earlier this year. I'm like, oh, well, now I know. This is where I want to spend my time. Again, not about me, but I don't even remember like where I was going with that. Oh, the first symptom my mom had was the shaking, obviously, but the second one was panic attacks, and the fear that she still has to grapple with and deal with on a daily basis, and her body just going into these panic modes because her brain isn't receiving enough of the neurotransmitters and that it needs to be functioning is, crippling within itself. That anxiety, crazily enough, at one point was one of the worst symptoms actually of all of the illness, all the symptoms.
And anxiety was, well, first of all, anxiety happens to people with healthy brains. So how do you know when it's an indication of something bigger? That's another thing to worry about. And my mom also had severe anxiety in the very early days before we dreamed that it was dementia. And she was seeing someone, and I recently found a little notebook that she was keeping, apparently on advice of the practitioner she was visiting. And it was like a journal, but it was a more specialized format for the journal where she documented her days and her worries. And I flipped through it. You have that trade-off of like, am I betraying, am I violating some...
I had the same experience. Yes.
Your mom's was truer journaling, like the real stories. My mom's was just this little lined notebook, just a little mini notebook, and it was more of a schedule, but a retroactive schedule. Like, instead of this is what I'm going to do, like more of this is what I did, but mixed in it was what was prevalent bothering her, on her mind at the time, because I'm guessing that they were trying to see if it was fears and anxieties impeding her ability to retain memories, and she saw herself making these little mistakes, forgetting things, not doing things she was supposed to do, and she was trying to figure out why. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we think about the fear that we feel, and then we think about what it must be like for them to be experiencing this. And I think just that inner knowing, though, like even when my mom isn't able to be fully cognitively present, I still feel the vibrations that she can sense, the love and the care. And even when there's fear or hallucinations or, being scared of my dad for no reason or scared of people or seeing things, like there's got to be this inner knowing, like in her soul and in her spirit, that she's so loved.
Yes.
And that we're always going to show up for her and we're always going to be there. And like, that's why you have people in your life. Like, that's really what part of life is really about. Like, I feel like a lot of it is our soul's mission, which our soul's missions are all to just be on this earth and experience it, but also like the relationships that we form. And so isn't that so beautiful that, like, if your mind starts to go and your brain is, running out of gas and playing tricks on you, that your soul and your spirit is always intact. That's never going to leave you.
That is love, true love, because I love my mom. I love the person who was my mom. I love that person she is now. And even though she doesn't know who I am at this point, she knows that I'm a safe person, and she's always happy to see me, which isn't true of all humans. So I know she knows there's some special relationship between us. She does not know that she's my mom because she doesn't know how old she is, and she can't reconcile that somebody as old as I am could possibly be her child. And she'll ask me sometimes, she'll say, "What's your name again?" And then I'll tell her my name, and she always says something positive like, "That's a lovely name." And, I'm thinking, well, yeah, you picked it. And,
she's like, go me.
I remember the very first time she didn't know me. This was a few years ago. And, oh, my God, talk about a special kind of hurt. We were folding laundry. Well, I was folding laundry and sitting next to her at her house. And she said, "This is fun." And I said, "Yeah, it is, isn't it?" And she said, "We haven't done this together in a long time." And mind you, I'm still thinking she knows I'm her daughter. And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. We haven't." And she said, "What was it, back in college?" And I had to run out of the room. I put I dropped the laundry and ran because I knew I was about to burst into tears. Because I thought, Jesus Christ, she doesn't know I'm her daughter. Subsequent to that, she did sometimes know I was her daughter, but and then other times not. Why was I talking about that one? The love that no matter what, even though she does not know I'm her daughter, doesn't know my name, she knows there's a special relationship there. There's some energy speaking to her that she's always happy to see me. She always says, "I'm so glad you're here. Can you stay?" Things that some energy is telling her this person should be with you.
What do you find? Because you said earlier about resilience is really what you're speaking to, about how you don't know how strong you are until you're forced to be in a nightmare like this. How do you navigate through that pain of her being at the point where her brain doesn't recognize you anymore as her daughter?
I actually have a little bit of a process that worked for me because I knew that I needed time to sit in the hurt and to sit with each new knowledge of how far she had progressed, the Alzheimer's had progressed, but didn't want to give it more than its due, didn't want to get it into a ruminating situation. So I always allow myself the drive home from my parents to my house, which is approximately 15 minutes, possibly 20 minutes. I'm allowed to cry from the moment I get in my car to the moment I get home. I can dwell, I can cycle through, and sometimes I'll even put on a meaningful song because that'll get me every time. And I know I need to let those things out, and I don't want to. I want to just distract myself and call somebody and think about other things. But I think no better time to process than, as close in time as I can, and just let it out. And sometimes I'll talk out loud to myself. Sometimes I'll just think them, although I do think talking out loud helps too. And almost always by the time I get home, I'm back under control. A couple times I knew I wasn't going to be ready. So, where I live by the canal, I would park my car and just walk into the woods and let myself finish. And it was sort of symbolic to me that I wasn't carrying the sadness part of it into my home. So it was important to me that by the time I was in my driveway, I'd let it all out for the time, little bits, little pieces. So a couple times I did stop and have to walk and cry and talk out loud, and people would see me, and I'm like, doing my process thing. But it worked, and it worked for me, so that by the time my car was in the driveway, I was like, okay, I'm okay now. I'm not great, but I'm okay, and I could go into my house and without having denial, just kind of switch gears and go on to the other important things in my life.
That is so beautiful. And I really appreciate you sharing that about your process. And it makes so much sense. And you held the space in coaching. You talk about holding the space for the client, for you. And for you, you were able to hold space for yourself, for your current self, for your inner child, for the you that needed the mother, that needed your mother, that needed to be mothered. You created that space, which is so emotionally mature and profound. And I just feel like that's an exercise of the higher self, to let yourself be human in that moment and grieve and process, knowing that if you didn't, it would show up in your body. It would show up in your human interactions. It would show up everywhere else. So to give yourself that space. And what also I find to be so beautiful is when you could feel it, and you'll feel it, I'm not done. I need more.
Yeah.
To go into the woods. I mean, this is one of our favorite wellness tools, for a reason. It is genuinely so grounding to be in nature and to get that healing from Mother Earth that we just can't get anywhere else. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. It hits. I'm gonna borrow that one. I'm gonna take that one.
It was definitely not a thought out plan. It was just the plan that happened, and being aware of what I needed, but then also setting parameters for myself. Like, you don't get to just be a melodramatic, you can until the time's up.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a deep breath and you're going to move forward.
That's why it's about holding the space for yourself, not letting yourself cycle out of control to where you have a panic attack, because then, like, let's say you did that, that's just going to prevent you from going over to your mom and start the avoidance cycle again.
Yeah.
And I speak this from experience because I tend to be an avoider. I tend to be very dreamy, sort of in my headspace, in my mind a lot. And so to be able to face reality head on is challenging, but certainly rewarding, and has helped me heal my body, I'll say, for sure, because I got sick as soon as her diagnosis came. Within 3 months, I started to suffer from severe health issues. So coming from an avoider perspective, I think once you're able on your own journey to sort of admit that, realize it, look it in the face, and understand that you're really just trying to protect yourself from the inevitable pain that just is, then you can make the steps with your therapist, with your coach, with your support system to move through it. And to, like, I'm on this journey of like learning how to sit with my emotions. Because like you said, Kit, it hits so hard in chunks, and sometimes it's triggered and sometimes it's random. And I'm on this journey of trying to sit in the emotions and process them. And then, like you said, pull myself out of it and back into the moment, if that makes sense.
It's important to remind yourself that you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not the only one going through this. And even people who aren't going through this and haven't even gone through something similar still have the capacity to support you and the desire to support you and love you and help you in whatever form that takes. And the things that seem scariest to say, to share, to talk about, because Lord knows that makes them more real. Like, that you can't avoid it anymore if you're talking about it. A lot of the time, those are the most important things to talk about, to say it out loud. And then you've kind of let a little piece of it out and you realize, oh, it didn't kill me to say that. Like, I was afraid that would, be it for me. But no, I talked about it and here I am. Mm-hmm. And hopefully maybe even feel a little better.
I remember I used to feel like I would be bringing people down.
Yeah.
And certainly, like, it all started, I didn't want to bring myself down, a little bit of that toxic positivity maybe with the denials. We're like, it's all good, it's fine. Like you said, like, well, at least she's still alive. I had many good years, all these sort of avoidant behaviors. And I used to feel like, I don't want to bring people down, but it has been so remarkable to just watch my friends like really hold space for me. And it's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for that. And I can really feel it from them that they want to be there and to sit and listen and just be in that moment. And then ironically, like, it ends up being even brighter after, because it's like a weight has been lifted when you can really look at this stuff in the face, as painful as it is. It's all very, it's like a braid. There's so many like twists and turns and layers and just things intertwined. It's not just like standard grief, which there is no standard grief, but like it's complex. And
yes, it's very complicated. It's complicated.
You need your support system. It's complicated.
And I absolutely relate to what you're saying about not wanting to put it on others, not wanting to bring them down, bring the mood down, change the course of the interaction. But you have to trust other people to be stronger than you give themselves credit for, or more accepting or understanding. And it can bring you closer to the people you trust with this emotional, sensitive information. And people will respond in ways you can't predict in advance because everybody's different and everybody's had different experiences. But by and large, people can see the pain when you're sharing something painful and have depths of compassion and understanding and ability to support. And, you know, I'd always think like, well, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I mean, what are they supposed to say to that? Well, don't worry about what they're supposed to say to it. They're not supposed to say anything. They can respond however they choose and give them the freedom to choose to respond in a way.
So it's, if you're experiencing something you're really, really afraid of, or if you're grieving, which is always scary, I feel like there's always fear and grief. Even when someone's already gone, it's just, it's very, very scary. Just know that leaning on other people is a huge part about what's going to get you through, and keeping it close to the chest like I did for so many years, it made me so sick. And I'm watching this parallel of like the more I open up and talk about it and really meet my fear and take care of my mom and show up and talk to friends and confide in people and go to therapy, the healthier I get. It's really weird. And the closer my relationships are becoming. And the more compassion I have for my mom. And then there's that braid again, the anger and the sadness and the fear. So I think just being able to know that your support system is going to be so key for you. Also knowing that your inner child is very, very scared, and that's okay. And to tell them, this is amazing advice that I got, is tell your inner child, hey, I got this. It's okay. I got this. I know you're scared. You aren't equipped to deal with this. I'm an adult and I'm moving through it, and I got this.
Yes, I will carry you.
So I would say like journaling, again, it's one of my favorite tools. If that resonates with you, I think it's speaking to you as a tool that's going to be really helpful for you. Inner child journaling, just speaking to your inner child, or just speaking about your experience, putting your fears on paper. I know that may sound counterintuitive, like I don't want to manifest my fears. You're not.
Yeah, by saying it out loud or writing it down, you're not going to make something happen that wasn't otherwise going to happen. You're not that powerful. You're powerful. You're not that
You are
kind
powerful.
of powerful.
Don't worry. Like writing down negative things, I used to be scared that was going to like, oh no, it's not going to manifest anything. It's going to help you process these emotions so that you can hold space for yourself and continue to navigate through life and not let this completely swallow you. So I think it's just important to tune in to your grief and to your feelings and to your fears. Feel them, hold space, let them go, and also don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yes. No weakness in reaching out for help.
Never. I think we so appreciate you for tuning into this particular episode. We know that it's not our regular show. It's heavy this week, and we just felt like it was really important to tune in and share this with you in case you're going through something similar, and we know it's going to help someone. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing us the space to be vulnerable and to be soulful. Like, just so appreciative of you.
And if you're listening for the first time, I strongly encourage you to check out literally any other of our 30 something episodes, because they definitely take a different tone from this one. But this was, I feel like, just stuff that needed to be said, and it was time. You all, most of you have known us for a while now, and this is who we are. These are the lives we're living. This is what we're going through and experiencing and doing. And this is the platform to share ourselves with you. So here you have it.
You learned something new about us maybe today, and maybe we got even closer because maybe you're going through something similar, and we just so appreciate you. Thank you for holding space for us. Thank you for tuning in. We love you so much.
Yes, we do. Peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light.